The night was colder than any night I had ever felt in our village, a kind of cold that didn't belong to Africa. Or maybe it only felt that way because I was standing outside my own home, shivering, staring at the wooden door my father had just slammed in my face. The echo of his voice still rang in my ears, sharp as a spear thrown in anger. "Not until you apologize to your sister." I stood there frozen, barefoot on the dusty ground, the moonlight washing everything in silver. It didn't even feel real. A few minutes ago, I was inside the warm glow of our compound, arguing with Amina like always. Now I was out here, breath shaky, heart pounding, still trying to understand how things had gone so wrong so fast. My first thought wasn't guilt, it was disbelief. Did he really just kick me out? Me, his only son? I laughed under my breath. A small, stubborn laugh meant only for myself. "He'll open the door in a minute," I muttered. "He's just trying to scare me." But even as I said it, I could feel the weight in the air heavy, final, unmoving. My father wasn't the kind of man who made empty threats. Everyone in the village knew that. Once he said something, it became law. And tonight, he had chosen to make me an example. I turned around slowly. The compound was quiet, the night insects buzzing softly. A lantern flickered inside the house, and for a moment I could see the shadow of my father pacing. I waited, and waited, and waited. Nothing. My anger rose like wildfire. "For what?" I whispered harshly into the darkness. "What did I even do? That's so horrible." But deep down, I knew exactly what I had done. Amina had only asked me a question, something small, something harmless. And instead of answering like a normal human being, I snapped at her in front of everyone. The words I used, I didn't even want to think about them now. Words can hit harder than fists, and I had thrown them at her without thinking. I tried to shake it off. "She get over it," I told myself. She always does. Still, I couldn't forget the way her face fell, how her eyes filled with tears instantly, how she didn't even talk back. She just turned away and walked home silently. That silence hurt more than anything. A stray wind brushed past me, stirring the leaves of the old mango tree nearby. The village felt emptier than usual, as if even the spirits had gone to sleep. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly wishing I'd taken my jacket before storming out. Pride really does make you stupid. Minutes stretched into long, painful shadows. My father wasn't coming back to open the door. He meant every word he said. If I wanted to sleep under that roof again, I needed to apologize. Simple, easy. But my tongue felt heavier than stone, just thinking about it. I took a few steps away from the door, looking out at the quiet village paths. The night felt endless. I didn't want to go anywhere, but staying here waiting like a lost child hurt even more. So I took a deep breath and walked into the darkness, not knowing where to go, not knowing what awaited me, but pretending I wasn't scared. The truth was, I was terrified. The deeper I walked into the night, the more the village changed. During the day, the paths were full of laughter, goats bleating, women chatting, and kids chasing chickens. But at night, everything felt different, bigger, darker, almost alive. Every rustle in the grass sounded like a creature watching me. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer than it should. I had never walked this path alone at night before. Why would I? Home was always there. Warm, safe, lit. But now, for the first time in my life, I realized how quickly pride can turn a familiar world into something foreign. I kept walking, pretending I wasn't shaking. My chest tightened every time a dog barked in the distance. At one point, a bat swooped low, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. I cursed under my breath, partly at the bat, partly at myself. This whole thing was stupid. I could have apologized. One simple sorry. But no, my ego had to take the driver's seat. A voice inside me whispered, "You didn't just hurt her, you embarrassed her." I tried to ignore it. After several minutes, I reached the old field near the school. There was a broken shed where kids used to play hide and seek years ago. It looked abandoned, now half roof, cracked walls, grass growing through the floor. But tonight, it was the closest thing I had to shelter. I stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and old memories. The moonlight slipped through a crack in the roof, landing on the floor like a faint spotlight. I sat down in a corner, hugging my knees, feeling the night press in on me. My stomach growled loudly. I hadn't eaten since afternoon. The hunger made everything feel harsher, more real. I rested my head against the wall and closed my eyes, but sleep refused to come. My mind kept replaying the scene with Amina. I saw her standing there, holding the bowl she brought for me, smiling like she always did. She had made extra rice because she knew I liked it, and instead of saying thank you, I snapped, accusing her of being nosy, of acting like she owned the place. The worst part wasn't even what I said, it was how loudly I said it. The neighbors heard. My father heard. And she had just stood there, her smile fading like a dying flame. I wanted to bury my face in my hands. Why did I always do that? Why did I act tough with the one person who never wished me harm? A distant drumbeat echoed from another compound. Weddings, celebrations, normal life continued somewhere far away from where I sat. It made me feel even lonelier. I pulled my legs closer, shivering as the cold sank deeper into my bones. For the first time since leaving home, the anger drained out of me. All that was left was a heavy, sinking feeling, guilt. I whispered into the darkness, as if it could answer me, "Why can't I just say sorry?" But the night stayed silent, hours slipped by slowly. My eyes grew heavy, and eventually, exhaustion won. I drifted into a thin, restless sleep, cold, hungry, and haunted by the look on my sister's face. One thing was clear. This night wasn't going to be easy to forget. I woke up to something crawling on my arm. My eyes snapped open, heart racing, and I slapped at my skin instinctively. A fat black beetle tumbled onto the dusty floor and wriggled away. For a second, I just sat there, breathing hard, trying to pull myself fully into the morning. My neck ached. My back felt like it had been beaten with sticks. The shed didn't soften anything, not the ground, not the air, not my thoughts. The sun was rising slowly outside, painting the horizon in orange and gold. It should have been beautiful. Normally it was, but today, all I felt was this heavy emptiness settling deeper inside me. Morning in the village always brought noise, women sweeping, roosters crowing, children shouting, but none of that reached me here. I was outside that rhythm now, a stranger in my own world. My stomach growled so loudly it almost echoed. I rubbed it helplessly. Food, water, rest, things I never even thought about because they were always there. Home always made them easy, but now, all I had was dust and regret. Slowly, I stood up and brushed dirt off my clothes. My mouth was dry. My throat felt like it was lined with sand. I needed water. I needed something to eat. And more than both, I needed a plan. I couldn't stay in that shed another night. I'd go crazy. I stepped outside, blinking as the sunlight hit my face. The village had already begun to wake. I could see faint trails of smoke curling from cooking fires between the houses. Smells of frying dough and warm porridge drifted toward me, making my stomach twist with longing. I debated going home. Maybe Baba had cooled down. Maybe Amina had spoken for me. Maybe no. I knew him. If I went back without apologizing, he'd only close the door again, maybe harder this time. And facing Amina without saying sorry first. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the courage yet. So I walked instead. Not far, just enough to get air in my head and strengthen my legs. I passed by houses and small compounds, avoiding eye contact with anyone who might recognize me. But even walking quietly, I felt the whispers. "That's the boy who shouted at his sister yesterday. He slept outside. His father really chased him. Serves him right. Pride will finish him." I didn't need to hear the exact words to know what they were saying. I kept my eyes forward, pretending not to care, even though each whisper stung like a thorn, piercing deeper and deeper. Finally, I reached the small market area. A few vendors were setting up early. I spotted Mama Sefu, the old market woman who sold vegetables. She was placing tomatoes in a wooden basket, humming softly. She was one of those people who always noticed everything. She glanced up. Her eyes locked onto mine instantly. "You," she said, her voice rough like stone but not unkind. "Why you walking with your stomach touching your back? You look like a hungry hyena." I forced a weak smile. "I'm fine." "You are not fine," she replied sharply. "Come here." My steps were slow. My pride resisted, but my hunger dragged me forward. Without asking anything else, she picked a piece of roasted cassava from her basket and held it out. My throat tightened. I didn't deserve her kindness, but I took it anyway, whispering, "Thank you." As I ate, she watched me quietly, then said something that made my chest tighten. "Pride is too expensive for a boy with an empty stomach." I swallowed, both the cassava and the truth of her words burning on the way down. I stood there, chewing slowly, each bite tasting like both relief and shame. Mama Sefu didn't look away from me. Her eyes had that ancient wisdom, the kind that made you feel naked no matter how strongly you pretended to stand. "You think you are the first young man whose pride blinds him?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just kept chewing, staring at the dusty ground. She clicked her tongue. When a child throws a stone in the market, it hits his own mother first. Remember that." Her words didn't need explanation. I knew what she meant. I had thrown my anger carelessly, And the person hurt most was the one who least deserved it. I wanted to defend myself, say she didn't understand, say Amina always tried to boss me around, say it wasn't such a big deal, but the truth was lodged in my throat. Even I didn't believe my excuses anymore. When I finished eating, I wiped my hands on my shirt. "Thank you," I said again. Quietly. She nodded. "Go wash your face. You look like a lost goat." Despite everything, I almost smiled. I walked toward the village well, a place usually crowded with women, but at this early hour, only 2 girls were there filling buckets. I bent down and splashed cold water on my face, letting it cool the heat rising in my chest. The chill snapped me awake, sharpened my thoughts. For a moment, I felt almost comment if I saw the reflection of someone behind me. Amina. She stood a few feet away, holding an empty water pot, her eyes wide with surprise. She hadn't expected to see me there. I hadn't expected to see her either. My heart stumbled painfully. She wasn't crying like last night, but she looked different, quieter, maybe a little sad, maybe a little tired. I didn't know how to read her expression anymore. For a moment, neither of us moved. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words failed me. Every apology I'd rehearsed in my head last night vanished like smoke. I felt like a child again, small and unsure. Amina shifted the pot in her hands. She looked down at her feet, then at me again. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something but she didn't. She simply turned and walked past me, heading toward the well. I stood there frozen. I had expected her to be angry, or distant, or cold. But that quietness, that hurt the most. It was like she had placed a wall between us, not out of revenge, but out of pain. I watched her lower the pot into the well, pulled the rope slowly, water glistening in the morning sun. She had always been gentle, always patient, and I had thrown my words at her like stones. When she finished filling the pot, she lifted it icily for someone her size. She had always been strong like that, quiet strength, the kind you don't notice until you break it. She started walking away. My legs felt heavy, but I took one step forward, then another. "Amina," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. She paused. She didn't turn around, but she heard me. My throat tightened. The apology burned in my chest, desperate to come out, yet still trapped. "Amina," I said again. Softer. She didn't move this time. She just kept walking. And that small moment, her silence, her distance hurt more than being kicked out of the house. Because now, I realized something terrifying. I was losing her. I stood there long after Amina's figure disappeared down the path, the dust settling slowly behind her as if even the ground hesitated to let her go. My chest felt tight, heavier than the pot of water she carried so effortlessly. I had expected anger, maybe even yelling, but the silence, that was worse. Silence meant distance. Silence meant hurt. Silence meant I wasn't her big brother anymore, just someone who had wounded her. The well area suddenly felt too open, too exposed. I walked away quickly, unsure where to go next, unsure how to shake the ache growing inside me. My feet carried me without thought, past small houses, past the schoolyard, past the mango tree where children usually played. Everywhere I looked reminded me of her, of moments I had taken for granted. I found myself standing near the riverbank, the water glistening under the strengthening sun. Birds hopped around the muddy edges, dipping their beaks into the water. The river always made me think. I sat down on a large rock and stared at my reflection rippling in the surface. I looked tired, and older, and strangely hollow. Behind the tired eyes, I could see the boy who had shouted without thinking, the boy who felt threatened by his sister's kindness, the boy who wanted to be respected but acted in ways that deserved none. I pressed my palms into my face, rubbing hard, trying to wipe away the frustration that clung to me like a second skin. I heard footsteps behind me. For a moment, I hoped stupidly, desperately, that it was Amina, that she had followed me. But when I turned, I saw someone else. It was Kofi, a boy from the village who loved spreading gossip more than planting seeds in his own father's farm. He grinned wide when he saw me, the kind of grin that carried trouble. "Heard you slept in a chicken shed," he said, laughing. "Your father is serious this time, I didn't respond. Kofi came closer, flopping down beside me. "My mother says you deserve it. That no decent son talks to his sister like that." He nudged me with his elbow. "What did you say anyway?" "People said she cried like a lost goat." My jaw clenched. "Mind your business. Don't be angry," he said, still smiling. "At least now the whole village knows you and your father are fighting. Very interesting drama." I stood up abruptly. "I'm not giving you a show." He blinked, surprised. Why so serious? It's just a joke. It's not a joke to me, I said quietly. For a second, he stared. Then his grin faded. Maybe he finally saw something different in my face, something raw. Without another word, he stood and walked away. I let out a long breath once he was gone. The river kept flowing, calm, unbothered by the storms in my chest. I stared at it again, letting my thoughts drift with the current. Slowly, like a tide pulling truth from the sand, something became clear. This wasn't about the fight. It wasn't even about the apology. It was about the person I was becoming, someone I didn't want to be. A sound behind me, a soft gasp, pulled me from my thoughts. I turned sharply, heart thudding. Amina stood there. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried again. I came to look for you, she said quietly, my breath caught. This was the moment. The apology rose in me like a wave. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other, me standing stiffly by the riverbank, and Amina a few steps away, clutching the sides of her dress as if afraid it might fly away with the wind. The morning sun caught the edges of her hair, turning them into a soft halo. She looked smaller than usual, younger, more fragile, and it hit me this was the same girl I had made cry. I swallowed hard. You came to look for me. She nodded once, a small, hesitant nod. You didn't come home last night. Baba told me not to worry, but her voice trembled, just slightly. I worried anyway. A simple sentence, yet it sliced through me. She worried about me, even after what I did. I wanted to say sorry right then. The word pushed at the back of my throat, but my pride, the last dying piece of it, still resisted. My mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Amina stepped closer, her feet crunching lightly on the dry grass. Why didn't you come home? I laughed under my breath, not from humor, but frustration at myself. Because Baba won't let me in unless I apologize. And you still didn't. Her voice wasn't angry, just confused, hurt. I rubbed the back of my neck. It's not that simple. She tilted her head, studying me. Why? Saying sorry doesn't make you small. I know, I muttered. Then why didn't you say it? She sounded genuinely curious, not accusing. I let out a long breath and sat back down on the rock. She hesitated for a moment, then sat beside me, leaving just enough distance that it felt like a wall but not an unbreakable one. The truth, I said quietly. Yes. The truth is, I don't even know why I shouted at you like that. My voice cracked a little. You were just trying to help, and I acted like. I shook my head. Like someone I don't want to be? Amina's eyes softened. You hurt me? I flinched. The words were soft, but they landed heavily. I know, I whispered. And I've been thinking about it all night. She looked away, staring at the flowing water. People say harsh things when they're angry, but the way you said it, her eyes glistened. It made me feel like you hated me. My heart twisted painfully. I don't. I said it instantly. Amina, I don't. Not ever. I was angry at myself, and I threw it at you, and I'm sorry. The word finally broke free, raw, shaky, real. Amina blinked, as if unsure she heard correctly. Yes, I said again, louder, clearer. I'm sorry, for yelling, for embarrassing you, for saying things I didn't mean. I'm sorry, Amina. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she wiped it quickly. I forgive you, she whispered. And just like that, something inside me loosened, a knot that had tightened for years. The air felt warmer. My chest felt lighter. But before I could breathe fully, Amina's expression suddenly changed. Fear flashed across her face. What's wrong? I asked, standing up quickly. She pointed behind me with trembling fingers. I turned and froze. A figure was running toward us from the far end of the river path, shouting our names with urgency, almost panic. It was Baba, and the look on his face told me something was terribly, terribly wrong. Baba never ran. In my entire life, I had never seen him move faster than a firm stride, but now he was sprinting toward us, breathless, sweat rolling down his forehead, his wrapper barely tied properly around his waist. His sandals slapped the ground with sharp, uneven sounds. Something in the way he moved wild, desperate, sent a jolt of fear through my chest. Amina stood up slowly beside me, her hands trembling. Baba! He reached us, bent over with his hands on his knees, gasping for air. For a moment, he couldn't even speak. His chest heaved like he had run from one end of the world to the other. Baba, what happened? I asked, voice shaking despite myself. He lifted his head. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't stern. They were afraid. That alone made my knees weaken. It's Mama Tembo's son. He finally managed, pointing toward the northern end of the village. A leopard? It entered their goat pen before sunrise. The boy went outside to check. Baba swallowed hard. He's hurt badly, Amina gasped, covering her mouth. Is he alive? He is, Baba said, but barely. A cold breath ran down my spine. A leopard, so close to the village. It was rare, extremely rare. Predators usually stayed deep in the forest, far from humans. For one to come this close, something had driven it. Hunger, territory, nobody knew. What does this have to do with us? I asked, even though fear already whispered the answer. Baba looked straight at Manat with anger, but with something heavier. Amina walks this path every day, he said, voice tight. To the market, to the well, to school. He turned to her. And today, she left before sunrise, looking for you. Amina's eyes widened, my heart nearly stopped. If the leopard had been on this side of the village earlier, my breath hitched painfully. 1,000 horrific images rushed into my mind. Amina alone, in the dim light, walking through the tall grass, unaware of a predator watching her. My stomach twisted violently. You could have been the one hurt, Baba continued, his voice cracking just slightly. Or worse. Amina's lower lip trembled. She silently reached for my arm, gripping it as if to confirm she was still here. Still safe. Something inside me snapped, not from fear, but from realization. All this time, I had been thinking about myself, my pride, my embarrassment, my hunger, my guilt, but I hadn't once realized how deeply I had pulled Amina into danger, how my actions made her wander alone, how she left home because of me, because she worried about me. Baba placed a hand on my shoulder, firm but shaking. Do you see now? He said softly. This world is not just about words, shouted or pride swallowed. It is about the people who walk beside us, the ones who would risk themselves for us. His eyes moved from me to Amina. Your sister could have died today. Those words crushed me. I looked at Amina, truly, looked at her, her frightened eyes, her trembling hands, her soft breath catching in her throat, and the weight of everything I had done, every harsh word, every careless moment landed on me like a mountain. I'm so sorry, I whispered again, voice breaking, not just for yesterday, for everything. Amina stepped into me and wrapped her arms around my waist. It wasn't slow, it wasn't hesitant, it was instinct, pure, human, immediate. I held her tightly, as if letting go meant losing her forever. Baba exhaled shakily, a sound somewhere between relief and exhaustion, but before any of us could speak again, a loud, distant scream cut through the air. A woman's scream, terrified, desperate. We all froze. The leopard wasn't gone. The scream split through the morning like a knife, chilling and unmistakably close. It echoed off the riverbank and bounced through the trees, silencing even the birds. Amina clutched my arm tighter, her eyes wide with terror. Baba turned toward the sound instantly, his body going rigid, every muscle tightening like a pulled bowstring that came from Mama Safu's side of the market. Baba said, voice low and urgent. My heart lurched. Mama Sephatha, same woman who fed me this morning, the same woman who warned me. The thought of her facing a leopard alone sent a cold shock through me. Before I could think, before fear could stop me, my feet were already moving. Wait, Baba called. But I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. Branches slapped my legs. Dust flew under my sandals, and my lungs burned as I sprinted through the path. The scream came again, shorter, more desperate. I pushed harder, racing past the schoolyard, past the mango tree, the village coming into view in frantic flashes. People were running out of their houses now, shouting, pointing, confusion everywhere. When I reached the edge of the market, I saw chaos: baskets spilled, stalls knocked over, a goat bleeding and trying to escape from a rope, and in the middle of it all, Mama Sefu was backed against a wooden table, her hands raised, eyes wide with terror. Only a few feet away from her crouched the leopard. It was huge, much bigger than I imagined. Its spotted coat gleamed in the sun, muscles rippling under its skin. Its tail flicked slowly, dangerously. Its yellow eyes were locked on her, pupils thin as needles, and from the way its body was crouched, low and tense, I knew, absolutely knew, was seconds from pouncing. Fear slammed into me so hard I almost stopped breathing. But then Mama Sefu met my eyes just for a second, and in her gaze, I saw something that burned straight through my fear. She had helped me when I had nothing. She gave me food. She gave me wisdom. She didn't deserve this, and if I ran away now, I'd never forgive myself. My voice came out before my brain caught up. Hey! I shouted, loud and sharp. The leopard's head snapped toward me. Something cold shot through my spine, like ice water. The animal's eyes locked onto mine. I felt rooted to the ground, caught between survival and courage. Behind me, I heard Baba shouting, "Kato, move back." But I didn't, I couldn't. Because if I stepped back, Mama Sefu had nowhere to go. All the anger I'd felt these past days, all the shame, all the guilt, it suddenly twisted into something else. Determination. I grabbed the closest thing I could, an old branch lying near a stall. It wasn't much. It wasn't even long. But it was something. The leopard hissed, ears flattening, body lowering even more. I stepped forward anyway. My voice came out rough, shaking, but loud. "Come at me, not her." The leopard growled, a deep vibrating sound that rattled the air. Its claws dug into the dirt. Its tail lashed. Its muscles coiled like springs. And then it leaped straight at me. I barely had time to raise the branch before the world turned into a blur of teeth, fur, and raw terror. Somewhere behind me, Amina screamed my name,